before I go on, I want to ask everyone to think about it. What is the most powerful thing in our experience? With our senses, we can see, touch, feel, hear. This very, very powerful thing. I mean, is this our parents, the police, Dr. Israel, or Rachel with her red lines? All these very powerful things. But here's what I want to point out to you is really the most powerful thing. So next, please.
It's me.
It's the sun. We have a picture of the sun here. The sun is more powerful than, of course, any nuclear weapon. The sun can actually destroy everything. Everything we thought was powerful a moment ago can be destroyed, because here you see the sun is actually able to shoot out in a mass coronal ejection and hit the earth. There's a little picture of the earth, maybe you can see it can destroy, it can melt the planet. Okay, so the sun is very powerful. It can destroy everything. So the next slide, please. And one more. But it doesn't destroy everything. Instead, it gives us everything we need for life and health. The plants breathe in from us and take the photosynthesis, enable us to produce what we need for us, for our air to live. The whole planet is able to exist and live as we know it because of the sun. So power is not a function of destruction, but of goodness and life. And I will just, as an editorial comment, say, I want you to think this is really an image of what we can know about God, who gave us this. Everyone says nothing more powerful than God. But he doesn't want to be known about power, but goodness and giving. So he gave us the sun, the planet, everything we need. It's about goodness.
To take advantage.
Yes. So, not in destruction, but in goodness. Next slide, please. Let the sun shine in.
There you go.
We need the sun. It is actually good. We've been told it's bad. You're gonna get cancer. People put on the sunblock. I was at the beach last year in Goa, in India, on the coast. And this is the Arabian coast, Arabian Sea. And I saw Russian ladies on vacation there, covered head to toe with a hat, long sleeve, everything. They will get no sun on their body. This is an extreme case of avoiding the sun. I mean, we know it causes if you have too much, obviously, you have a risk of skin cancer if you have a lack of pigmentation in your skin. But we actually must have, they say about 20 minutes a day, maybe 3 days a week, exposing about 30% of your body. You need to have no clothes on this part of your body, no sunblock. Even 8 SPF will block out that, what we need to get what? The sun helps us make vitamin D. We need the vitamin D for our bodies to be healthy and to function normally. So what else? What would I want to tell you about this? We need the direct radiated UV rays hitting the skin. Stomach, back, neck, arms. The skin and the sun interact in a process where the cholesterol is converted to vitamin D from the sun. So let's just dispel any of this myth that it's a bad thing. Also, I want you to know that you can't get it through the window. You can't sit in a chair by the sun and think you're going to get that blocks the UV. You're not going to get your vitamin D.
Why not?
You got to go outside.
Why?
You have to be out. Well, like I'm saying, the UV is not going to get in through the window sufficiently to interact with your skin. So you got to go outside.
So would you get cancer if you sit? No, there's sometimes.
Not everyone is at an equal risk of cancer, and I'll address that momentarily.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Vitamin D deficiency. This is really our problem. We're all, to some degree, vitamin D deficient, particularly at our latitude. From San Francisco to Boston and on around the globe, we are removed from the equator, which is where the sun's concentration is. So we're already at a risk just by being here. So one more, wait. Yeah, 90% of Americans don't get the optimal amount. There are reasons for this. Like I say, there's distance from the equator, there's the weather, there's people just cover themselves up. They're not going to get the amount of sunlight they need. And if you have pigmentation in your skin, you're going to not be able to absorb it. In fact, the study shows that African Americans have a 95 to 100% less benefit from their exposure to the sun, meaning they need to stay out there 2 times as long as people who lack pigmentation, European Americans. Additionally, like I say, I learned this from Karma, that while this is the case for African Americans, that they don't get the benefit quite as much from the sun, they do have the less risk of skin cancer development. So you don't want to get too much sun, but you definitely need to get some. And of course, people are not getting it, which is why we end up having to go for other means, like the supplementation for the diet. Don't change that. Let's see, 2 times is longer. Let's think about this for a second. Breastfeeding. This is very important for the child to benefit immunologically and otherwise, but if the mother does not have enough vitamin D, she cannot give this to her infant. So children are at a risk for developing the same deficiency as their parents in this regard. So it becomes necessary for us to, as I say, increase our vitamin D through other means if you're not going to be able to get yourself into the sun. All right, next slide, please. Vitamin D is important to the, no. Yeah, that's right, we'll just leave it. Vitamin D is important to the body in many ways. It's in your nerves, it helps the message transmit in the nervous system, it's in your muscles. All over your body, there are cell receptors for vitamin D. Go ahead with the next step, please. These are the commonly known skeletal system problems that result from a vitamin D deficiency. Rickets is a long understood problem that has been known throughout the world. It was so bad in the 30s, they came up with a public health program to address this, in which case they added vitamin D to the milk. So they call that vitamin D fortified milk. So all the children have to get that. Used to, before that, they were having the cod liver oil, because you really can get it also from the fatty fish. But what rickets is, it is when the bones remain soft, they don't harden, and leads to severe skeletal deformity for infants. But this was widely addressed in the 1930s. It's not as big of a problem, but it is possible that it kind of is coming back. They're thinking a little bit, largely it has been addressed, and so people kind of thought that was the end of vitamin D. We don't have rickets anymore, so we're not going to worry or think about it, but it continues to be a problem. And in the case of the elderly, we have osteomalacia. Osteomalacia. This is a case where you have weakened bones, muscle pains, and this is the sort of the case that you're going to have the counterpart to the rickets for the elderly. And this, of course, leads into the next point there. Every year, like 1 in 3 people over 65 have serious fall. They're going to have fractures as a result of this. And studies have been conducted to show that if you supplement with the vitamin D, you can improve your balance and muscle strength, because elderly people, they're not able to process with their skin, loses the ability to make the vitamin D as much as the younger people. And so they really do need a supplement, and a deficiency increases the likelihood of the falling and the breaking. But if you take, also of course it produces what we learned today, muscle weakness. Can anyone think of what we learned today about this?
Yeah.
Who can answer this? What is this? Myasthenia. That's right, myasthenia. And they say that you can actually reverse and improve your balance with 1,000 international units of vitamin D per day. And so there is an association of a 26% less likelihood of falling with about 4,000 international units a day of supplementation. This is vitamins we're talking about. And about a 15% less likelihood of the fracture. So we need it, our infants need it, and the elderly need it. Okay, let's see the next slide, please. Not only the elderly and the infants, but next. Age 20 to 40, the prime of life. MS, or multiple sclerosis, attacks the myelin sheath covering of the nerve cells. It's an autoimmune response. And the first diagnosis usually occurs between the ages of 20 and 40, so that's basically the rest of us. And some of the symptoms associated with this autoimmune disorder are, well, they're rather severe. You have hand tremors, speech and hearing difficulties, double vision, foot dragging, bowel problems. It's really quite a horrible thing to endure. And but there's been research, and Dr. Jeremy Swanson has shown that by a study in Scandinavia, there's a much greater incidence of development of MS. And the connection is drawn with that distance north of the equator. They're so far out of the distance of where the sun is that they're just not getting, this is the suggestion of what the association is, enough vitamin D, so we gotta supplement. Like I say, we're in San Francisco, you guys need supplement. Every winter, everyone's at a deficiency, so we need to take the vitamin D. Okay, next slide, please. Additionally, mental health is associated with a deficiency in vitamin D. There you go. Of course, it has been known of the association between sunlight and depression, going back 2,000 years. And what it is the vitamin D plays a role in regulating adrenaline, noradrenaline, and dopamine production in the brain through vitamin D receptors in the adrenal cortex, as well as protecting against the depletion of serotonin and dopamine. This is the theorized association, because your mood is involved with these chemicals in the brain and in there are receptors in the hippocampus, all affecting this. And so they say that in their study that you have they did a 31,000 participant study in the British Journal of Psychiatry, in which the increased risk of depression and suicide obtained in those, they were found to have a diminished level of vitamin D in their blood serum. Okay, we don't want to
Next slide.
give it up and then look what happens. So next slide, please. Look at this. An amazing claim that many studies that they do down in University of San Diego Medical Center in association with a university, with Creighton University Medical Center, they have done a study of I believe 1,200 women and determined from their research that only supplementing an additional 4,000 international units a day can lower the risk of breast cancer by half. I mean, this is like, woohoo! It's phenomenal. So they've done a lot of research, more is ongoing. What they found in their particular study is that a 3 times greater risk obtained in those who were deficient in vitamin D, particularly in the 90 days prior to diagnosis. So they were able to look at the stored frozen blood and to look at these women and compare those who developed breast cancer when it occurred with those who did not, and they found that that critical 90-day period prior to breast cancer diagnosis, those who were so diagnosed were severely deficient in vitamin D. And then they went on to suggest that, as I say, the phenomenal claim of a 50% reduction. And they studied other cancers as well. So the benefits seem to be limitless, really, in taking vitamin D. Next slide, please. Here's your sources. Keep going. Of course, the sun. Everybody needs to get the sun. Of course, nobody's going to get the sun. So you have the food sources, the fatty fish, you have salmon, you have tuna, cheese, milk, some mushrooms.
Chocolate?
Unfortunately, chocolate, if you put it with these, it will work, yes. You can add chocolate to it. You eat it alone, it's not really warm the top. Sure, add it. I always put it in there. People are not going to get a sufficient amount from their diet, okay? And actually salmon is not a good thing because there are other reasons why salmon's not so healthy anymore.